Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, everyone is rolling in. It looks like there is a waiting room, which is fine. I'll just have to let everyone in. All right, we'll give everyone 10 more seconds to join, and then we will get going. Lots to cover. It's really good stuff, and I cannot wait for you guys to learn. All right. I'm going to share my screen. I think it'll be helpful if you can see my screen. If you are, 1 second. If you are on your phone or something, you also get the replay, so you can always go back if needed. All right, I just want to make sure that you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And then I'm just going to check one thing to make sure I can see if people need to join, that I can let them in. I'm gonna unshare 1 second and then all right, looks like it automatically set up that way. So we are good to know. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to go through a handful of slides and a lot of teaching components and really focusing on helping you understand supplements. So I think this is something that is somewhat newer or not as talked about, or common knowledge isn't out there as much. And I know back in the day, I would have been really grateful if someone just kind of laid the land for me. And that's really the goal of today, to really lay the land so you get a better grasp of supplements, and it might answer a handful of questions that you guys already have. And then at the end, I will cover any questions that you guys have. Now, I want to be upfront that I am not an herbalist. I am not a doctor prescribing you supplements. This is really for educational purposes, especially geared towards ladies who are lifting weights and want to build muscle, decrease body fat, improve performance, and improve overall vitality and health. And to do that, supplements may be a part of your strategy. And so that's what we're really going to talk about today. If you aren't familiar with me, my name is Jenny. I am a licensed nutritionist and a holistic functional nutrition practitioner. And I've built my shape through having a strategy. That is the biggest component that I stress, because I feel like it is the biggest thing that is missing. It definitely was for me beforehand. I was really trying to do it all. I was hustling when it came to nutrition and fitness. I was trying everything. I was dabbling. I was getting all the different pieces and putting in a lot of work, but not seeing the results I wanted from it. And learning the strategy is what allowed me to build my shape and continue to create compounding results therefore after. And now this is what I teach and how I work with my ladies in my Create Your Shape program. Now, towards the end of this, I do have a special offer for those of you who want to learn more about Create Your Shape. Stay on and we'll be discussing that at the end. But for now, let's talk about supplements. So we're going to cover the strategy, what they are, why you would consider them. We're going to talk about blood work, some of my common suggestions, and taking it back to applying supplements with your strategy. So the goal is to build your shape, right? You guys, if you're on this call, I know you want to build muscle, you want to decrease body fat, but really you want to have the shape that represents the work that you put in, that screams work ethic, that you like walk into the room and you have the lines, the curves, the definition, where you can look good from any angle, where you take a step and your leg muscles show with that definition, where you have a shape that you designed and you have control over that. So in order to do that, you have to have a strategy. And the way I like to think about having a strategy is there's your nutrition strategy. So if you look at this line right here, this is all of the components. That is your game plan. That is your strategy, right? So that's your macros. That is your nutrient timing of when you're having those macros. That's those macros mapped out over certain months of when you're having more food or when you're having less food. That is when you're reverse dieting, right? When you are increasing the intake of that macros. That's when you're focused on quality versus quantity and how those both come into play within that strategy. How you are using nutrition to support your training and get the most out of that. All of that is your game plan, and supplements are just one part of that entire game plan. So that's the how. That is the okay, here's what you do. But I know with me and all the ladies that I coach and teach, just telling them what to do, they can execute, but it's going to be way more powerful when they are empowered with why we're doing it. So having nutrition knowledge is a part of that strategy. And that's why I emphasize teaching and education so much within my program. But if you listen to my podcast, you know that. And then especially here today too, when even talking about supplements. So having the knowledge so you understand it and can really almost zoom out and look at the framework and understand the categories to make sense of all of it. And then with that, if you have the game plan, you have the knowledge, you're also a human who has a life and will always have a life. So how do you make this part of who you are and how you operate? How do you make it make a nutrition routine that is successful to get you from that point A to point B? And so all of these together is the complete strategy that will get you from the point A to point B of having that shape that represents the work that you put in. So supplements may be a part of that, but they are just one part of that it's really hard to achieve any goal that you have if you're just going to take one supplement, right? You really have to think of it as part of the bigger picture, and all of that together is what moves the needle. So now that we've talked about that, let's drill down on just supplements and what they are and why you might consider them. So the definition of supplement is something that completes or enhances something else when added to it. I think that's a good definition, but the way I think about it is really a concentrated or manipulated form of a nutrient, right? So just like the food that we eat, it's typically taking something, one component, one aspect of that, and concentrating it or manipulating the form of that nutrient. And everything that I talk about today is about natural supplements. I think this is something else that gets confused out there. People are like, oh, I don't want to take supplements. I don't want to take something that is not going to be like a natural ingredient. So I'm not talking about steroids. I'm not talking about prescriptions. I'm not talking about a fat loss pill or replacement meal. I'm not talking about any of those. I'm talking about natural nutrients, herbs, vitamins, and minerals. So even just knowing that there's a separate category of those, I feel like is beneficial, because there is some what you may call like snake oil supplements or just things that aren't healthy or beneficial out there for sure. But everything that we're talking about here is natural supplements. Okay, so that's the what, but why would you need supplements or why would you take them? And I want you to think about our bodies like you thought about that third grade math problem. I always think about that when they're like, okay, imagine you have all of these numbers going in and in the machine, and then things happen, and then you have an output. Well, the inputs here, if you think about it, are going to be everything that either goes into our body or things that we're doing, right? So your inputs could be food, obviously, supplements. It could be other lifestyle factors like drinking, smoking. It could be even what you're inhaling and don't even realize, like pollution, or even from your curtains that have fireproof chemicals on them, right? Things that you're touching, like your shampoos, your cosmetics, all of those are inputs into our body that we may not realize. This amount of sleep, our training, right? All of those are inputs that then our body, which is a system, has to do something with. Now, within our body, we have a handful of systems, and that's how it operates all together. So it could be our digestive system that helps break down and absorb the nutrients and excrete the nutrients. It could be our endocrine system, like our thyroid, that helps control our metabolism, or our hormones, our reproductive system, or hormones that help control other aspects of our life, or adrenals that can help control energy levels, right? All of these systems work together as a whole and they overlap. So when food goes into our body, it doesn't just impact our digestive system, it's going to touch every single system in our body, and every single system in our body is also going to have an impact on other systems to create then our outputs. So in this sense, our outputs are really going to be the amount of muscle we have, the amount of body fat that we have, and also the amount of energy that we have, how strong our hair is, our skin, our nails, our energy levels, right? Our immune systems, the ability to function and fight off different infections. So pretty much our livelihood and also our shapes are that output, right? So when you think about it like this, supplements are a way to enhance or alter those inputs to target or support those systems in our body. I almost think of it like a factory, and you have all of these assembly lines. And if there is a breakdown on one of the machines, or let's say there's buildup, right? We want to go in and spray that part of the machine down and clean it up, so that way it can function properly to give us the output that we want. Same thing with our bodies, thinking of our bodies like that factory. Now, this is kind of an overview, but if we go into specifics of why we might utilize supplements, there are a handful of reasons, one being nutrient deficiencies. So in today's world, there are a handful of reasons why we have deficiencies, but one of them is just lack of nutrients that we got back in the day. Perfect example of that is our soil is different now, our water is different now. It doesn't have the same amount of trace minerals that we had before. So that might be a reason why we're deficient. Another reason is stress levels, right? The more stress that we have in our lives, and it's very typical especially for my ladies who are high achievers, go-getters, who they naturally have a more stressful life, that stomach acid production might be lower, right? So that's another example. It could be just maybe our genetics, and we have maybe a SNPs or a polymorphism where we don't have a certain enzyme, or there's people out there who don't have the enzyme to break down milk and lactose, right? There's other things like that are less common and less discussed. So deficiencies could be there for a handful of reasons. Those are just a few examples. Another reason why we might utilize supplements is just enhancements. If it's been proven that we may not naturally have higher creatine levels, but it's been proven time and time again that taking creatine, increasing our creatine is going to help us in the gym to manage lactic acid and to be able to push in our training more, then that is an enhancement we may choose to have, especially when it's been so studied and there aren't many, if any, side effects with that. Another reason, just for the convenience, I think of protein powder immediately. So protein we can get from food, we can get from natural food, and that is great. And also it has been proven that it is ideal to have protein within 90 minutes after a workout, maybe even within 30 minutes. And that's really hard to cook up chicken when you're at the gym. So getting in a protein powder that the form has been manipulated so that way it's easier to digest and you can have it in your bag and you can quickly shake it up within a couple of minutes to be able to get that, it's really convenient. Or let's say you have a protein goal of 150 grams of protein and you are traveling 1 week and then the next weekend you're going on a backpacking trip. Well, having that protein powder is a really convenient way to hit that protein goal and be able to still make progress towards your main goal. So convenience may be a huge factor of why we might utilize supplements too. Controlling the form. So a good example of this is we get magnesium through our food, but we may need a certain type of magnesium. Like we may want magnesium glycinate instead of citrate. And to get that certain form, we maybe only can get it from a handful of different food sources, but only at certain dosages. And so we can get the specific compound that we need or wanting with supplements. Another reason might be controlling the dosage. So broccoli sprouts has DIM in it, and that is something that I've used before to help detox my estrogen. And so I was doing about 1.5 cups of broccoli sprouts per day to get in that amount of DIM. And after a while, getting in that amount every single day, especially if I was traveling or going somewhere, one, it's again not convenient, but then two, I was needing to get more in, and controlling the amount that I was having it got to be a little difficult, where I could just take it in pill form that had the specific amount that I was wanting or needing. Same thing with vitamin C. You can get 50 milligrams of vitamin C with a cup of orange juice. But in order to get the amount that I needed when I wanted to support my adrenals, I needed 3,000 per day. And it was also more ideal if that was spread throughout the day. So I could take, I don't know the math on that, but a gazillion cups of orange juice throughout the day, which then obviously would impact my macros and I'd be way over on carbs. Or I could easily take vitamin, I have all my supplements laid out here. I could easily just take vitamin C specific times throughout the day and it not impact my macros, and it'd be a little bit more convenient and have more control over the specific dosage. Another reason might be to control the combinations. So vitamin D is a really good example of this, because vitamin D is best absorbed with K2. And I can strategically have a supplement that has vitamin D in K2 in it, so I'm just absorbing more of it and getting more bang from that buck. And then lastly, controlling the timing. I kind of spoke on this with the protein powder, right? It makes it more convenient to get exactly what I need in post-workout. Same thing with the vitamin C. I was able to strategically spread it throughout the day, or even zinc and magnesium. If I want zinc in the morning and then magnesium at night, I can easily do that by deciding when to take certain supplements. So those are just a handful of reasons why you might want, or how we can use supplements. And then typically the next question people have is like, do I have to do this forever, or what does that look like? And really there are two scenarios. One is you're bringing yourself from deficient to sufficient. So let's say my thyroid is a little sluggish, and it could be because I'm lacking certain nutrients because of my 20 years of a certain diet or 20 years of lacking certain nutrients in our soils. Then I may take this supplement until I am sufficient and my thyroid is back balanced and where I want it to. However, there are some that it's just my DNA or genetics has, I'm not producing the enzyme to break down lactose, then I may need to continuously take that for long term. Or let's say that in today's world where we are inside for the majority of our day, which is different than back in the day, I may need to take vitamin D every day because it's just a different lifestyle than back in the day, or what's really needed every single day. So the next question that we typically have is like, okay, great, but how do I know what supplements I need to take, or what does that look like? And again, generally two factors. One is just common research and studies that are out there. I don't think this is something that I would expect people to go and research on their own and study on their own. But if you're into the fitness world, if you're taking a class like this, right, then you start to learn more, or you start to see things more. Like someone asked about creatine, right? Because you hear about it so much. So that's one way. Another way is getting blood work done. So in Create Your Shape, I have all of my ladies get blood work done so we can look at their machine. We can look under the hood. We can look at their body's machine and then go in and adjust or manipulate or fine tune their nutrition, their supplements, their training, really all of those inputs to then support their machine to have more control of those outputs. Now, going back to what I said earlier, just having supplements or one supplement, right, isn't going to generally have a huge impact and change absolute everything, but can it make a hell of a difference in supporting your overarching strategy to reach your goals? Definitely. I've had ladies who were super low in vitamin D and they just didn't know it. And just getting their vitamin D levels to sufficient, they now had energy in their day-to-day again, whereas before they felt like they were just dragging ass. So what that may look like, I have a sample of blood work here and how you might read this or use this to then know what supplements. Now, obviously, this is what I do with my ladies, and this is just one example and not for everyone here to adjust their supplements. So looking at this, how to take a glance on this is this column on the left is my clients' results and their lab results. So you can see, vitamin D, glucose levels, you can see their results there in the unit. The client analysis in the middle column is kind of the green, orange, yellow, red of saying, okay, what do we need to look at here? Just the visual representation of the results. And then over on the right, this is the ideal ranges. And the thing that I want to call out here is there are pathological ranges, which you're typically going to see in a clinical setting. And those ranges are wide. They are wide because they're looking at the average American, which you guys are not the average American. And they're also looking at what are the ranges where you aren't, like, have a disease, essentially. Whereas that's great, that's needed for certain purposes, but specifically for what you guys are after and for what my ladies are, where they're at and what their goals are, we don't want to just make sure they're surviving. We want them to be thriving. And so we look at more narrow ranges, which are called the functional ranges. And so they're more narrow ranges, and really it's giving us guidance to say, okay, this is a little higher, this is trending lower, we can optimize this here. So for example, vitamin D. So her vitamin D is 36. And you can see immediately that that's on the low side of the functional range. And the pathological ranges are 30 to 100, where the functional ranges are 60 to 80. So if she has symptoms of being tired, if she's having downstream impacts of not having hormonal, her hormones balanced where we want them to be, and not having that like get up and go, then this may be a reason why. And so I always tie it in, look at the symptoms that I'm seeing, reviewing the blood work and using that as guidance, and then making the decision, what could support her here. And I may look at adjusting training. I may looking at nutrient factors and adjusting macros or amounts of food. And then after that, then I'm considering supplementation. Again, how all of these things work together is what's important. It's not just a one pill fix. So here, yes, getting outside may be a great idea and going on walks. But really that isn't going to do not much. It's just going to put a little dent in this, where we really want to get her to sufficiency, from deficient to sufficiency. And so this is where I would suggest having her take a vitamin D with K2. Next up would be C-reactive protein. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but I'm just going to give you a couple of examples and a couple ideas. C-reactive protein. So that's going to tell me how much inflammation is in our body, and that could be for a handful of different reasons. So again, what is the root cause of that, and figuring out what's going on there. And or if needed, a supplement I might use is a curcumin. So turmeric is really great to decrease inflammation. Curcumin is just the root of that turmeric. So that might be something that's used there. Or we may instead focus on different nutrients that are causing inflammation, again, depending on the person. Insulin markers here, based on what I'm seeing here, they're a tad higher than what I'd want, but everything that we'd be implementing in the Create Your Shape program, with the nutrition, with the nutrient timing, with creating your plate, with learning how to really utilize how you're eating food, I know is going to support this and adjust this, and that we're already going to be implementing that. So I feel good there. Thyroid support. Now, thyroid, it's something that if you're not eating enough, it's going to impact your thyroid and create a sluggish thyroid. And that's something that I typically see because so many of my ladies aren't eating enough, and why eating enough is step one in the overarching strategy. Now, here, I don't want, yes, eating enough is going to support the thyroid, but I don't want to wait because hormones take a little bit longer to get impacted and adjust. I don't want to wait. I want to get them from deficient to sufficient as soon as possible. And that may look like adding in selenium that helps with their thyroid in the conversion of T3 to T4. Now I'm getting a little bit more into the science of it, but selenium, iodine, right? Sodium and salt, I may add these in to help them get from deficient to sufficient as soon as possible. A few more things that I want to call out would be maybe hormones. This is something that low progesterone can be common, especially if you're on birth control, but having a good balance between estrogen and progesterone is important for your not only energy levels, quality cycles, and if you're experiencing PMS symptoms, that could be a reason. But another reason is typically when our hormones get imbalanced, especially when we're a little bit more estrogen dominant, we may start to store body fat around our midsection. And that usually could be a symptom, which obviously nobody typically wants, and could be another factor that is not helping us decrease body fat in the way that we could. Another symptom that I see is anxiety. That is something that I experienced. If you listen to one of my latest podcasts, when my progesterone was really low, I started to feeling anxiety in my body, even though I didn't really have a reason to. And my progesterone was really, really low. And so using supplements to help increase our natural production of progesterone is something that could be used here. And that might be a chasteberry. And that will help also even out estrogen levels. moving along to the bottom one here, the lipid panel. And so LDL is actually something that I see that is typically high, and that creates higher cholesterol. And a lot of people say, oh, it's just my family. That's the reason why. It's because of genetics. And typically that's not the case. Sure, there might be a component there, but typically it comes down to types of food that you're eating and then your stress levels. And because my ladies are very go-getters, high achieving ladies, again, stress is going to be higher. And so I do see this more than not. So something that I address is obviously we look at stress levels and stress management and looking at that, but we also look at nutrition. Not eating enough is a stressor on your body, and having saturated fats, having refined oils, having refined sugar is also going to impact your LDL. So cleaning that up first, typically I see changes in this. However, if it's a little higher than I would like it and want to add in more support, then I may add in fish oils, which has been proven to help reduce LDL, or even garlic oil. Same thing, it's been proven to help reduce LDL. Now, this is just a handful of examples, but let's step back now that you see how supplements are used and give you guys the framework and the overview of supplements. I like to categorize everything because I feel like that is how you really can understand a topic without getting a master's in it and getting your license like I did, right? And this is something that it's a kind of a teaching style that how I use this for everything, but definitely in Create Your Shape. I want to make sure that you understand the framework of how it works in the different categories, so that way you can execute. And then when you hear different things, you know where to place that topic or that idea within that framework. So for example, there are 4 categories, give or take, with supplements. Now, one category is food, right? It's just taking food and putting it into a different form. So that might be like protein powder, right? We can get protein from a handful of different sources, food sources, but supplement companies can take that, put it in a form that's more convenient for us. Same thing with creatine. Creatine is an amino acid, and you can get that. Amino acids are the broken down form of protein, right? So you can get that throughout your day. However, like I mentioned earlier, it's been shown that it can enhance our training if we get a certain amount, and you're not going to get that certain amount even if you're hitting 120, 150 grams of protein throughout the day. So what they've done is they've taken that amino acid and they have broken it down and made it just a concentrated form. So then you can consume it at the appropriate dosage to reach the goals that you want. DIM is another one. DIM, like I mentioned earlier, helps you detox estrogen, which you can find it in broccoli sprouts, but they have put it into the pill form. One more that I wanted to mention is BCAAs. I think that's a common one that gets thrown out, and BCAAs just stands for branch chain amino acids. And again, amino acids it's protein breaks down into 50 different particles, and those particles are called amino acids. They all have a different name. There are essential amino acids, so there are 9 essential amino acids, and that's where, just to give you a little more context on amino acids. And branch chain amino acids, pretty much it's taking all those essential amino acids and saying, hey, we're going to give you these all in one place, and you have to have all of the essential ones available for protein synthesis, which that is how your body builds muscle. So back in the day, they were saying, hey, take this because this is going to present all of those amino acids for you to help you build muscle. And nowadays it's been shown, and we know that if you're hitting your protein goal, you're going to be getting those 9 essential amino acids in, and taking the branched chain BC or BCAAs isn't necessary, right? People say it's like throwing money in the trash because you're already getting it in. Now, I agree with that, but at the same time, I have found that when I take BCAAs, I have a new level of focus and I love the way it makes me feel. So I use it for that, even though I know it's not really serving a purpose in the other way. So just wanted to add that note in there. Okay, so that's the first category, food. Second category, herbs, pretty much plants, right? And could we get some of those throughout our intake? Maybe if you have broccoli sprouts or if you're kind of having weird different things, but typically people are not consuming a lot of plants or vegetables, or specific plants that have things like adaptogens in them. So adaptogens allow us to be a little bit more elastic. It's like it's almost like a spotter at the gym, right? It's like it gives you that extra confidence and that extra support to get you back in range. And so things like maca or things like holy basil, those are examples of adaptogens that are just going to help your body's processes kind of manage themselves better. Another example might be antimicrobials. Now, a perfect example of this might be something like FC-Cytal. This is just pulled from a plant, but it has antimicrobial bacteria in it to help kill off bacteria. So for example, I'm taking this right now because I had a food poisoning bacteria experience last week. And so I'm helping my body kill off the bacteria by taking this. Next up is vitamins. Now, there is some crossover, right? Obviously, you're going to get vitamins in food, but again, thinking about separating everything out into categories, I find this is the best way to think about it. So it could be vitamin A, it could be vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, B vitamins, and vitamins are going to help all these different processes within your body. So, sometimes we are deficient in them. Sometimes we may need them. Like, for example, this is random, but if you bruise easily, it could be that you're lacking vitamin E. Or if you are going to have, surgery done and you want to make sure your bruising heals quickly, vitamin E might be something that you take, right? And then lastly, minerals. So examples of this are like your electrolytes, right? So different ions. So maybe magnesium, maybe zinc, maybe sodium are all examples of minerals that we may take. And we lose electrolytes when we're sweating or if it's hot out. And so that might be something we supplement with during those days, whether obviously Gatorade has electrolytes in it, or they now have things like element packs, which are very tasty, concentrated forms of electrolytes you can take. It may be something that you may need to take daily. For me, living in a tropical place, it's always hot, I'm always sweating, I'm working out, and I know we're not getting as much trace minerals as we did back in the day. It's something that I typically take every single morning. So those are the main categories and a few examples of each of them, but I wanted to go through a handful of different examples. So you just see different uses of how we might use supplements. Low vitamin D, the most common one, pretty much 99% of the blood work I see has low vitamin D. So that one is pretty standard. However, I will say that you can have too much vitamin D. And so that's something that I wouldn't suggest unless I saw blood work and being strategic. Again, you've got to be strategic with everything, to have a game plan of, okay, we may have a lot for a couple of months and then back down because by then you would be sufficient and then we don't want to push you over. Sluggish thyroid, that's something I see. I've talked about this, selenium, zinc, iodine, and depending where I see the need, I may suggest just a little bit of support. I may increase the dosage, or I may suggest an entire different supplement, depending on the status of the thyroid or the status of their specific organ or results. PMS symptoms. that is something that I see common. And magnesium, zinc, a B complex, B6 is going to help support with that. High estrogen, we've talked about this. I may suggest DIM there. Low progesterone, I may suggest chasteberry, or which is Vitex, which is from a plant. Low alkaline phosphatase. This is something that I typically see on blood work, and typically that's from a lack of zinc. Again, that's pretty common in today's world, especially in the States. Acne, I may suggest vitamin A, but again, I'm going to look at the whole picture and to see, could there be other reasons that are driving it? High cortisol, I may suggest Cort-Ease, which has ingredients in it to help metabolize and bring down that cortisol. So if they're a higher stressed person, or really if I see on their blood work, then that's when I would suggest something like this. If you're just generally a higher stress person, but I'm not seeing maybe that high cortisol level on the blood work, then I may suggest adaptogens. Typically, my ladies are great candidates for adaptogens. I know I am, again, because we are someone who's going to put more stress on ourselves. All right, next up is cholesterol. So we talked about that. Garlic oil, fish oils, maybe a supplement I may use here. Again, emphasizing that supplements is just one piece. I'm going to consider training. I'm going to consider other supplements they're taking. I'm going to consider nutrients. I'm going to consider what we're already implementing and create your shape to support all of this. Low adrenals. Vitamin C is great for low adrenals. Gut dysfunction, probiotics, SAC-B, Saccharomyces back. I don't know how to say that last word. B might be a good probiotic there. It's kind of like a catch-all one. Or maybe they're having trouble upstream where they're not even digesting the food and they need some digestive enzyme support. Or like I mentioned earlier, low stomach acid is something that is common that I see with my ladies. And so I may suggest a betaine HCl, which essentially is stomach acid, to help them start producing their own stomach acid again. And then training support, there's things like protein powder, things like creatine that may be suggested there. All right, just a few more topics here. So what are common suggestions that I have? I would say my typical and go-to suggestions are going to be protein powder for ladies who are lifting weights. What do you look at when it comes to protein powder? Typically, I want to make sure that it is a whey isolate. There are many different forms, but a whey isolate is going to be filtered the most to remove as much lactose so there won't be as many side effects, and a pure, like, high quality form. I also am making sure that it is having at least 20 grams of protein and lower than 5 grams of fat and 5 grams of carbs. Many people are saying, well, why can't I just take a protein bar? But your protein bar is going to have so much added stuff in it that the protein powder isn't going to have, that now you're adding in a ton of fats, you're adding in a ton of carbs, when you could be getting that from real foods. And you're also adding in additives, colors, the other things that you don't want to be consuming. So that is why I suggest protein powder. Also, it helps you hit your protein goal, but also it's great to have right after your workout to just enhance that workout and get more out of that workout. Creatine is another one. Creatine, any creatine monohydrate is what you're looking for. There has been so many studies. I think it's like the most #1 studied supplement on the market. And typically, what it does is it helps with the buildup of lactic acid. So therefore, you can push more in your workouts and get that buildup of lactic acid later, therefore getting more reps in or pushing harder, which if you want to build muscle and or decrease body fat, right, having muscle is going to help with that, and being able to get closer to failure in your reps is going to help with that. Electrolytes is a common one that I suggest for all the reasons that I've mentioned before, even with myself. Zinc and magnesium are ones that I typically suggest, whether I see the symptoms of cycle symptoms in PMS or other, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. That's kind of the main things that I see that I would suggest zinc or magnesium for. Again, this is just not as present as it was before in our soils and our waters and our food, and a common reason why we are deficient there. And then lastly, fish oils. This is another one that it is pretty well studied and known that our omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is imbalanced. Omega-6 is when we're going to have more inflammatory items, and that is really typical in just our food source today. Oils, like it is really hard to not have seed oils, to not have vegetable oils. If you eat out at all, you're going to be having those typically, because most restaurants aren't going to be used as anything in a box, anything in a package is typically going to have those seed oils in it. And so we're getting a lot more of that than we typically need versus omega-3s, which are, it's going to be found in like fish, right? It's going to be found in different, I think avocado too, in different real food sources. And that helps decrease inflammation, where typically this should be the ratio, but in today's world on average, it's like this. And so to help fix that, we want to obviously bring down omega-6s, which again, we do in so many different ways in Create Your Shape, just on what you're eating and how we're thinking about food and creating our plates, but then also bringing up that omega-3 through things like fish oils. And having joint pain or having soreness or having inflammation in the body or aches and things like that, or not recovering as well, this could be a contributing factor why, or the symptoms and why fish oil might be added there. Okay, last up, let's talk about considerations for when you're getting supplements. So I hear this all the time, like, but Jenny, I'm already taking vitamin D, no problem. I'm already taking that, we're good. But then they tell me that they got it at their local pharmacy, and I look at the dosage and it is maybe 400 IU of vitamin D. And I'm like, yeah, that's just not doing anything, right? That's great, but you need way more than that to get you from deficient to sufficient. So here are handfuls of things that you want to consider. First is the brand. Typically, your pharmacies, your CVS, your Walgreens are going to be cheap and low quality. And somebody asked me before, like, is there a cheaper option? I think one supplement was like $50. And I was like, yeah, but it's not going to be quality. It's just not, it's like taking 1/5 of it, right? And then you would need 5 times as much, and then you're gonna be paying just as much. You're so much better off getting a higher quality supplement, and supplements will be like $30 to $80 typically for quality ones. But if you want it to work, it's worth it. So getting things from typically Amazon or the direct source is the way to go. The direct website is the way to go. Looking at transparent labels versus I cannot say this word, y'all. Proprietary blends, that's not it, but you know what I mean. Pretty much on a supplement, it's either going to list out everything that it includes, or it's just going to have one line and it's going to say it's a blend. And you're like, a blend of what? Of how much? Right? They're just not telling you what's in it. And that's the first red flag. So you want to be able to see exactly what's in it. Same thing with looking at a nutrition label. That's how you would look at your supplement label. Some of my favorite supplements, which this is not all inclusive, is going to be Metagenics, New Ethics, Pure Encapsulation, and Now brand. And I would say Now brand is typically the least expensive. If you want to write that one down, and you can get it at Walgreens and in CVS, and it's in these orange bottles here. The next thing is reviewing the label, right? We already talked about transparent labels, but what is in it, right? What exactly are you consuming? And I think this is so empowering, because we're not ever taught this. And typically we're taught to just look at what the marketing says. Oh, this is going to make me smart and focused. Okay, cool. Turn it around and say, what actually is in this? And then you may even want to look at the type, right? Because magnesium citrate is going to be different than magnesium glycinate, where magnesium citrate's going to make you go to the bathroom. Magnesium glycinate is typically not, and going to be a form that we just react better to. Now, obviously that takes time to learn that stuff, but just, again, these are just considerations and just get you thinking. The next would be dosage. Now, there are things like zinc, right, and many other things where you're gonna look on the back, and in your multivitamin, there might be 2 milligrams of zinc, and you're like, okay, right? But if you really needed zinc, you may need 30 milligrams per day, right? Or you may want to, like, for example, I was taking 30 for a while, but I don't want to take it forever at that high amount. I feel like I was good, but 2 milligrams is too low. So now I have 15 that I take. And then same thing with the vitamin D, right? Like I talked about, sometimes for vitamin D, if you're low, I'm typically going to suggest 10,000 IU for 2 or 3 months daily to get you sufficient. And then I may suggest drop down to 5,000 for a while. So this, again, going back to the brand, this is Metagenics, going back to what's in it, vitamin D and K2. K2 is going to help with absorption. The dosage, this is 10,000 IU, right? And just starting to get familiar with that. And then lastly, other things to consider, which again, just getting you familiar to start questioning this, is what else is in it to increase absorption. So we just went over K2 to help increase the absorption of vitamin D. What type of food are you eating with it, right? Should you be eating it fasted, which, for example, like this probiotics, I would have fasted, or is it better to have with food? The first time I took a thyroid support, and this was a couple of years ago, I took it on an empty stomach and I immediately puked. And I was like, something is not right here. And then I learned that you have to take that with food. And then another example would be the type of food you're taking it with. So vitamin D is best absorbed when taken with fats. And so having it in the morning when I have maybe peanut butter or when I have whole eggs is going to help the absorption of that vitamin D. And then lastly, the timing, which we briefly mentioned, when you're consuming that supplement. So for an example, zinc is going to be better to be taken not when you're taking magnesium, and magnesium is going to help with sleep. And so taking magnesium at night and then zinc in the morning may be best or beneficial. Again, all of these are different components. It's not like if you miss one of them, it doesn't work, but they all do add up to increase the absorption. Now, I know you guys are thinking, like, how do I know all this? How will I learn all of this? And there's so much out there that you probably won't. There's so much that I do not know that I'm still learning as well. But I'm sharing with you what I do know. And what you can do is go to a site like examine.com and just type in chasteberry. Or if you're looking at the supplement and you're seeing, oh, it has in it holy basil. What is that? You can type in that word and get some information on that part and that ingredient. All right, so let's recap. First, supplements are just one part of the strategy. They are not the end all be all, but can they make a hell of a difference? Yes, they can, when everything is working together to get you from that point A to that point B. What are supplements? They are essentially a concentrated or manipulated form of nutrients. Why do we use them? Because we either have deficiencies for convenience, so we can control the dosage, to get us to be sufficient to aid in our body's systems, to build muscle, decrease body fat, overall vitality and health, indoor performance. And obviously overall health can just be a reason in itself too. You can use blood work. That's one way to fine tune what supplements you're taking and to know why you would need something, and kind of get a look under the hood to really support all those different systems. And then I just went over a handful of common suggestions and considerations when I am suggesting blood works, especially that I typically see for my ladies who are lifting weights, taking care of themselves, but are really wanting to fine tune their shapes and their nutrients and their kind of strategy and game plan. And then the final thing is really thinking about and going back to the strategy, right? This is just one part of the strategy. And I'm going to emphasize that your nutrition strategy may include supplements. It may include your macros, your nutrient timing, it's like your nutrition game plan mapped out over months. That's your nutrition strategy, and includes all of the components that are going to help you build muscle and decrease body fat. Now, having knowledge with that and being empowered and understand it is going to make you be able to stick to it more, but it's also allowing you to set up to sustain the results for the long term, because you know how to make decisions long term, and then creating that nutrition routine, so it's just who you are and how you operate, again, makes it easier to stick with, because it's not something else you have to do, but it is just working for you and making you feel better and getting your results and getting those changes day in and day out. So this is the complete strategy, and the complete strategy is my Create Your Shape program. This is what we implement, and this is why I really emphasize it. And for those of you who have registered for this supplements class, I know you fit the ideal person for this program, because you want to learn, you want to understand it. You're at the level where you are considering supplements and how they fit into your plan. And so just for those that have registered, I have a new Create Your Shape program that is starting on Monday, and I have opened up 3 spots for the ladies who are either attending live or who are watching the replay. The replay will be available until end of day Sunday, and you'll want to apply by end of day Sunday, and then we get started on Monday. So you can do so by going to jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape. Again, this is for ladies who are lifting weights, want to build muscle and decrease body fat, consider performance, consider overall vitality and health, but really you want to change your body composition, right? You want your shape to look the part. You put in the effort already, you're already lifting, you're already conscious of your health, and you want the body that says, hey, I work out, I work hard, I have the lines, the curves, the definition when I put on my outfit, when I work out in the sports bar, when I go to my beach vacation, when I wear the leggings, right? When I go on a hike, when I go backpacking, like I work hard, my body represents that, and I know how to fuel it. So the second thing that we create in there is you learning the nutrition strategy, you learning all the components, like we just talked about with supplements, but learning nutrient timing, learning how training fits into your overarching game plan and getting the results, learning to be more efficient, learning how to understand macros and how to understand food and how to understand the categories of food. Really being empowered when it comes to this topic. And then the third thing is creating your nutrition routine. So that is creating your week-to-week flow of how do you implement this in the day-to-day? So it's just who you are and how you operate, whether you're going on vacation or you're going out to eat, or you have a busy day and you forget your dinner and your kid wants to go out to eat, right? How do you manage that with life? And it's just who you are and how you operate. So I'll quickly share a few things that are in it, and then we will go open it up for questions. So how it works is Create Your Shape is a one-on-one program with group components. So that means you have your custom dashboard that has your macro strategy on it, your custom blood work review that is just for you, and that gets updated just for you. Now, we also have weekly check-ins and progress tracking to ensure you're making progress. And within that too, we have training optimization that we're going to look at, the blood work review, like I mentioned, but then the weekly coaching calls is where we'll do the coaching, guiding you along, but then also educating, right? And going over the different topics that we have weekly so you learn and understand nutrition. You'll have a toolkit where all of your information is housed, or all of the modules and guides and references within the program are housed that you can have access to. But that's how I want you to think about it, where you have the game plan, but you're also building up your toolkit and your understanding and these different items that you can pull in when needed. And then during the program, it's with the guidance of me. So the ladies in Create Your Shape, they are all ladies who are lifting weights. They're all go-getters. They're all badasses who really are taking care of themselves, but taking their shape to the next level. And they want to learn and they want to understand it too. And lastly, you'll be coached by me specifically. I think it's common. I get this question a lot where they're like, wait, are you actually going to be coaching us? Or I'm going to be with one of your other people? But I coach all of my ladies, and so you'll be working directly with me. So there are 3 spots open for ladies who have registered for this supplements class. You'll have to apply now and get signed up by end of day Sunday. So you can do that at jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape. And then we kick off Monday with a nutrition seminar. And that is where I'm really going over the nutrition strategy. So oh, I see what I'm doing for the next 4 months. I see the game plan, and then we can get to implementing and get to coaching and get to making progress. This is one example of one of my Create Your Shape alumni and what she shared. What you have taught me, the guidance you have given me has been priceless. The peace of mind, confidence, and just overall reassurance that life doesn't have to be this constant up and down feeling or falling backwards on your diet. You have such a wonderful program. You truly make this a lifestyle that is achievable, maintainable, and works. That really makes me happy because that's something I take pride on, because I used to be that person, right? Who was just like, okay, I'm either on it or I'm off it, or I'm just so confused. And I wanted to understand the strategy and able to live within that strategy. And then Ellen said, while I have a strong strength and conditioning background as well as basic nutritional knowledge, I have learned so much these last 4 months, from the simple day-to-day task of setting yourself up for success to being able to take that information and apply it to yourself on such a deep level. Again, this is really what I like to emphasize specifically for like my program at 9 Type of Ladies, is that it's not just, oh, do a little bit of this, but it is like, here's why, here's how you understand it, and here's how you can do this long term. And also here's how you can make decisions for yourself and really be empowered with nutrition. So you can join us at jennythenutritionist.com/create-your-shape, and you'll want to apply as soon as possible because we want to get you signed up by Sunday so we can get started on Monday. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for any questions that you guys have. Now, keep in mind that if it's specific supplements and you're going to look at this or look at that, or should I take this or take that, that's really going to be probably more detailed than we can do in this capacity. But anything that I've covered, we'll open it up for questions on that. So you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and let's chat. Oh, it looks like people are in the chats. Thank you so much for the information. You are welcome, Jesse. Thanks, Jenny. You are welcome, Carmen. All right. Are we all good? Any advice for perimenopause? So perimenopause is typically going to impact those sex hormones. And so what I would wonder is, where are you at in perimenopause? What do your sex hormones look like? And then based on what that's sharing, then you can add support to that. It may be something like chasteberry to increase your progesterone, but it would just depend on where you're at and what you're seeing there. Any other questions? Another one I typically get is multivitamin. And what about multivitamin? Should I take one? Should I not? I definitely don't think it can hurt. Do I think some are better than others? Yes. My favorite one is called Full. What's it called? Full. It was called Full Fertility. Multivitamin. Oh, it's called Full Well. And it technically is a prenatal multivitamin, but if you think about it, when our bodies are at our best, they are most fertile. So the prenatal vitamin is really just getting our bodies to be our best, which is going to trickle over to the rest of our lives too. So I took that one for a while when I was in the States because it had a handful of different vitamins and minerals and vitamin D. It just had everything in one instead of having all these different supplements. Any final questions? Is Thorne a good brand? Yes, Thorne Research is one of my favorites. I don't think I added it on to the list, but this is what the brand looks like. You'll have to get it online. It's called Thorne Research, but yeah, that's a great brand. You are welcome. Stay on for one more minute and see if anything else pops up. All right, amazing. I'm going to pop off and send this to everyone who will be watching the replay. And do not forget, the 3 spots are for just those who signed up for this class. And we start on Monday, and you'll want to apply now so that way we can get you set up and get you signed up by end of day Sunday. I also do have a handful of consultation spots open for those spots as well if needed. But if you are a good fit, it will immediately accept you and you'll be able to get signed up right away. So then we can get started and get the information to get your blood work done. All right, have a fantastic rest of your evening, you guys, and I will speak to you soon.